welcome to this another video. I'm going to I'm not going to spend time to do an introduction. I got some feedback on this video I did some times ago when I was looking at theater spaces, and one of the feedbacks I received is that the video is a little long and so it's not as user friendly as some of the teachers who use it in their classrooms would have liked. The video has all the information on all the different types of theater spaces, and so what I'm about to do, I'm going to cut down the video, right? So I'm going to put them in parts: part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, and each part will deal with only one type of theater space, so it makes it a lot more user friendly for you. All right, so look out for them. I'm starting with the formal theater spaces and then going to the proscenium arch, and then you will see them in part 1, part 2 going forward for all the other types. You're going to need at least 2 to 4 small black boxes. Yes, and I'm not talking about cardboard boxes, I'm referring to wooden boxes. But if cardboard boxes are what you have, then of course paint them black and use them, because they can still do some of the activities. You're going to need at least 4 pieces of rectangular cardboard as well, or black fabric, and I'm talking, they don't want them to be too long. And then you need at least 6 to 10 chairs. It could be more, yes, depend on the size of the class, the size of the group, etc. Yeah, 6 to 10 for you. So you're going to chairs. So you're going to need these resources as you go along. So when we get to the activities, then you'll know exactly what it is that we are going to be using these resources for. So what exactly are theater spaces? And it's very simple. A theater space is a space that specializes in staged performances. Now, these performances or spaces can either be a formal theater space or it can be an informal theater space. So what exactly is a formal theater space? And so a formal theater space is one that has been designed and used specifically for stage performances, example, an auditorium. So if you are familiar with the Little Theatre here in Jamaica, you understand what that formal theater space looks like and what the design is. When you're thinking about a space that's designed and used specifically for stage performances, it usually carries all the fixtures that that requires from the stage. And later on, we're going to look at an example where we look at the anatomy of a stage, where we can see some of the different parts. For example, the lighting fixtures, the wings, the audience seating area, etc. But it's specifically designed for the stage performance, and it is also used specifically for that. The informal space, however, is a space that is not designed for stage performances but can be adapted and used for these kind of performances. For example, a classroom. Yes, so a classroom is not designed for stage performances, but you can take that classroom and you can transform it into a particular space. And the thing about when you transform a space that's not designed for theater into a stage performance, you can choose any of the types of performance space and design the space to look that way. And we are now going to look at some of what those other spaces are. And so the types of formal theater spaces that we're going to be looking at today, we're going to be looking at the proscenium arch stage, the thrust stage, the arena stage, and the box stage. So let us start with the proscenium arch stage, and we want to look at some of the characteristics of the proscenium arch stage. First, we must point out that the proscenium arch stage is one of the most popular theater spaces that exist right now or in modern society. The audience sits at one end of the building, and the stage is at the other end of the building. And it has a frame, and if you can look at this picture, that is right here, you see that it has a frame through which the audience will view the performance through. And it has a specific feature, which is the arch, although with today's proscenium arch stage, most of them are no longer arched. But right here, you can see the arch. Yes, and that's how it got the name of the proscenium arch. But like I said to you, the spaces today, you may not see the arch, but the name, the concept remains the same of it being a proscenium, and there's that frame through which the audience will view the performance. Now, the thing about it is that this particular arch that's right here that creates this frame, what it does, it creates that invisible fourth wall that separates the audience from the performers on this stage. Other characteristics of the proscenium arch stage is that it is also sometimes raked. And what you mean by raked, it means that it is slanted from the back downwards towards the stage. So if you look at this picture here again, you see the seating. If you look at the trajectory going towards the stage, you realize that it is slanted, and that's called a rake stage. And the stage is also sometimes raised a few feet off the ground, because what it does, it allows for visibility. Again, if you are familiar with a theater space here in Jamaica, and the theater is one of the spaces that I will draw on, because it's really one of those popular theater spaces within Jamaica that's often used. I'm sure in other parts of the Caribbean and other parts of the world, you'd also experience what your own proscenium arch stage look like. And so just drop something in the comments just to tell us what your proscenium arch stage looks like in your part of the world, whether it's in the Caribbean or someplace else. What exactly does your proscenium arch stage look like, if it bears these particular features that we would have mentioned just now in the video? Now, what are some of the pros and the cons of working through a proscenium arch stage? Now, with a proscenium arch stage, it allows for a more realistic setting. So you can set up like a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, etc. The proscenium arch stage facilitates that kind of realistic setting, because it also has a nice cyclorama towards the back that allows you to be able to create wonderful backdrops as well. And everyone in the audience gets a good view of what's happening on stage. Now, because of the layout of the proscenium arch stage, where the audience is at one end and the stage is at the other end, the audience is looking directly at the action, so they get a good view of whatever it is that is happening on stage. So you're not worried too much about sight lines, so to speak, as with some of the other spaces. The nature of the stage, proscenium stage, is also deep, so it's not very close to the audience. And so because it's deep and it's away from the audience, it allows for certain kind of scenery. Yeah, it allows for a certain kind of elaborate scenery. And so, as I mentioned before about the backdrop that can be formed on the cyclorama that will be at the back of the stage, it allows for you to put that there. But there's something about a proscenium arch stage too that has flies, and the fly is a space above the stage. It goes all the way up, so things can be flown in. So when you see things entering from the roof in Moore's Place, it's called the fly. It's coming from all the way up in the ceiling. Proscenium arch stages allow for that to happen more so than most of the other spaces. Yes, because of the design of the spaces as well, there can be better utilization of the wings. So the performers can stand in the wings unseen by the audience as they await their cue to enter and exit the stage. You can also, the stage hands who are also going to be changing scenery can also be standing somewhere in the wings waiting to go and change the set or to change the scene, etc. It allows for entrances and exits in different kinds of ways as well when you're working with the proscenium arch. And then it also, the lighting and sound, it makes it easier because the light is kind of directed in one particular location, so it makes it a little easier for you to be able to hang, rig, and set your lights to illuminate the performance that is on stage, or even if you're using it for special effects, it can be done. But however, everything that has advantage also comes with disadvantage. And one of the thing about working through the disadvantage of the proscenium arch stage, we are going to look at some of those. All right, so disadvantage is that the audience feels removed from the stage, as the stage tends to be remote and informal. Now, previously I talked about that frame, that arch, and that frame that creates that invisible fourth wall, as well as how deep the performance is. Now, because of that, there's always that distance between the audience and the performers on stage. So you may not feel that sense of intimacy. And so because of that, what you find is that sometimes the playing of the actors on stage has to be big, yeah, in order for the audience to get a clean, clear view of all the actions on the stage. Now, another disadvantage to working through the proscenium arch stage is that the actors must be mindful of the audience at all times, yeah, because it's an unnatural play, right? Because you're playing, you want the audience at all times to see your face, your facial expression, to see your interactions. And so the backs are seldom turned to the audience within a proscenium arch space. The thing about this that makes it so unnatural is because in our real life and everyday interaction with human beings, we are not being mindful of whether or not our backs are turned or sides are turned, and we are not concerned about sight lines. However, because theatre is about attempting to capture that reality on stage, you want the audience to also see the actions for them to better understand and interpret what is happening on stage. So therefore, the actors have to be very mindful of opening themselves to the audience at all times. You're cheating the position, how you're standing, and the director will also help in directing the actors that way. So that's one of the disadvantages, that you have to be mindful all the time. And sometimes, you know, some of we might mess it up, you know, and sometimes the actors, the audience don't get a chance to see some of the action because of that. And because of the fact that the proscenium will allow for you to create elaborate setting, right? What you might find is that there's a temptation that you may get carried away with this elaborate set and forget about all the other things theatrical, and forget about the sight lines and the fact that the audience needs to see exactly what is happening. Yeah. So that's it for the disadvantages of the proscenium arch stage. Now, here I have an image of the little theater. Now, it's not from an angle that I would want it from, so I could walk you through. Now, at the back where you see this white area, that is what you call the cyclorama, and I mentioned that earlier. Now, the cyclorama, it's this white fabric that is hanging at the back. It's weighted and it's always at the back, and so it can be used for special effects. It can be used to project backdrops. You know, you can use it to do a range of things. Here on this side, you can see where the fabrics are tied up, and it's because I'm not sure why they would have tied them up, but for different reasons. Sometimes if they're working and they're moving through, they will tie them up. But this is where the wings would be. So if these curtains are pulled and they are let down, or the legs as we call them, what you have is the wings. Yeah, so you'd have several of them where the actors would stand in wait to enter the stage, or they would exit in this particular direction. Up here is where you'd have the proscenium arch. Now, if you remember, I said earlier that most theaters now no longer carries an arch, but they still have the frame, that idea of a picture frame. And you can see that right here. Yes, the curtain is not there right now, right? So you could be able to see the curtain, but this is where it is. And right on this area where you see this black section is what is called the apron. So this section is in front of the arch, and it is not necessarily used so much as a playing area. And up here is where you have the lights, or some of the lights, because you'd have lights other places. But because of this space, you realize that the lights are pointed in one direction, so it's able to cover the entire stage and make it easy for you to see what is happening on stage. Now, if you stand on the stage and look all the way up above this playing area, because this is the playing area of the stage, all the way above that, if you can see, it's a very high ceiling, and up in the ceiling is called the fly. All right, and of course, this is where the audience sits, and where the audience sits is usually called the house. Yeah, so I hope this helps. I mean, it's not the perfect image to use, but I'm sure it could help you in a way to at least understand some of the various parts of the proscenium arch stage. All right, so here is their first activity. You are going to use the material or the resources listed at the beginning of the video, and you are going to transform your classroom into a proscenium arch stage. So you're going to use the boxes, and the boxes will create the stage. You're going to use the rectangular cardboard or the black fabric. You're going to try to use those to create your wings, and the chairs from your audience area. I don't have to tell you how to do it, but work with your students or guide your students and allow them to attempt to transform the classroom into a proscenium arch stage and see what the results are.